All right, guys, so I showed you in the last lesson how to use RX7 to remove some individual sounds so we can isolate everything to figure it out. But now I want to show you how to do this stuff in Logic, just using Logic plugins. If you haven't figured it out yet, it's pretty much going to be mostly using EQs to cut out frequencies and see if you can isolate specific sounds that way. Just some really good knowledge overall about working with audio and EQs and frequency ranges in general. You know, something to always remember when you're producing is that each instrument that you add or record should fill a harmonic space on the chart. So really simple, you want your bass instruments to have a lot of the low end, but you got to make sure they don't fight with your kicks. Same way you want your guitars to not mash up with your snares or your synths to override any other sounds in there too, because all these frequencies mashing together, you know, should just take up the space they're designed for. So that makes it a lot easier conceptually to dive into this to see how we can really isolate sounds without using expensive software besides Logic. Pulling up an EQ here on our loop, okay? There we have just a regular blank EQ. I play it here, you can see the analyzer's dancing around. You know, you have your lows, your mids, and your highs and all this stuff. So if we put on the cuts here, we can start to kind of focus on certain parts. So if I were to use this to kind of isolate the bass, probably cut a little bit of the subby frequencies out because it is an older style recording. Those basses don't have as much sub frequencies as modern music. So if we cut out the highs, although highs are very important for bass guitar, it really just cuts out the guitars. Now we can maybe boost a little bit around 150 to 200 and see if you can hear those individual little peaks of the notes poke out. So let me turn it up a little bit more. So that's one way you would do that. So we would play along to this to figure it out and re-record it. Another way to look at it would say, hey, okay, how can we figure out the guitars? And that would probably just be the opposite way. What it will be a little complicated is to isolate the guitars from the pianos and the strings that are in the sample, but let's see what happens. So if we cut out the lows, we lose the kick. You get that cool filter effect that's so popular in music production, and you can still hear the bass. If we go a little bit higher, you kind of start to lose those high frequencies of the bass. We can hear the guitar nice and clear without getting muddled from all the low frequencies. So I think for the piano, it's going to be tough to hear it through the drums and everything like that, but you just eventually try to really focus in on your hearing onto that instrument and go note by note. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that later on when we remake this stuff. But this is just a really cool technique to show you that you don't really need expensive plugins to isolate instruments so that you can, you know, replay stuff or change it. So you could actually take out the low frequencies, replace the kick with a nice modern kick, and redo the bass over it and see if you can make it work together and create something new from it. So just a really simple technique. In our next lesson, we're gonna dive right into recreating the sample, recording some audio. You know, I'm gonna show you guys how I do it with my bass and guitar and using a lot of MIDI instruments also that are built in with Logic. So stick around.